Hi, Lisa K. Donner here with Liberty Nation, and with me today is Scott Cosenza, our legal affairs editor. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Lisa.
All right, so we're coming down to crunch time for the Trump administration to challenge the election. And some people have put it into two categories. Basically, there's a wholesale way to get this to the Supreme Court and a retail way. Can you talk to us a little bit about those two pathways?
Well, that's a discussion about whether of how votes are being challenged. They're being challenged in terms of retail vote challenging, which is to say individual votes cast, individual ballots submitted with perhaps a signature that's out of order or one that doesn't match on an envelope. And that would be challenging vote by vote at a retail level. Or there's
Let me just interrupt you for 1 second. That has largely been done unsuccessfully to this point, hasn't it?
Yes, that's right. I mean, there's been little successes to speak of for the Trump campaign in the court on either measure. I think that the reason why it's important to talk about the wholesale versus the retail is because it seems to be that only the wholesale challenges will have any likelihood, and I think it's a bit much to even call it a likelihood, any chance at seeing something on the order of overturning the results of the election.
All right, so what constitutional issues are we looking at wholesale? And I'm going to differ with you and say that I don't think a lot of those have been seen by the court yet.
Well, that is certainly true. And that is the issue, in fact, is that they haven't been seen because there's been no evidence presented outside of affidavits that allege massive fraud and abuse. And this is Sidney Powell's case that she's making in the court of public opinion anyway, where she keeps repeating about the massive fraud and abuse concerning this election to the tune of millions of votes stolen and sold. It is a panoply not just of election interference, Lisa, but of massive and serious federal crimes and a huge criminal conspiracy, which means that the evidence of it, extraordinary claims must be met with extraordinary evidence, I think. And we have seen only these affidavits that Ms. Powell has offered. So we'll have to see. You're right. The courts haven't considered it because no evidence has been offered yet beyond this testimonial evidence, which is a kernel to base an investigation on, to be sure, but a mile away from what would play in court as dispositive proof of some wrongdoing.
Okay, but she says she has loads of affidavits, and then of course you have to have expert analysis or statistical analysis as well, and presumably they're gathering that up for sometime between Wednesday and Friday release to the court.
The last I heard her speak directly on it, she said she hoped within 2 weeks from Saturday, the 21st of November, that she thought she would be able to make her filing first in Georgia. Now, I'll tell you right away that affidavits and expert testimony will not be enough. That is not enough evidence to even remotely get close to overturning a national election. I mean, I'm talking about people who voting machines themselves, the code, people who say that they programmed machines or bought or sold votes, something well beyond allegations of international intrigue that have played in the press.
All right, well, presumably she's staking her reputation on the line by saying, that she has this evidence. So we have to assume at some point she has a plethora of evidence.
Okay, let me just stop you right there. And I think that's the wrong way to proceed because it is such an extraordinary claim. I don't think it is incumbent upon us to assume it. I think it's incumbent upon us to give a serious person. I grant her that she is a serious person, and I'm willing to take a look at what she presents in a serious fashion. But I'm also not willing to eschew norms of logical thinking or skeptical thinking when wild claims are made. And until they're substantiated by more than they have been, Lisa, they are, in fact, at this point, wild claims.
Well, I'm basically saying it's time to put up or shut up.
We can all agree on that.
Okay. All right. So there's also, what are the basis of the constitutional questions? In other words, for the Supreme Court to look at it, what argument does the Trump campaign or Sidney Powell, who is no longer a member of that team, what arguments do they have to make?
Well, if they can prove massive fraud, that would be a basis for which a federal court would potentially order a Secretary of State in one of the many states to not certify an election, or to throw it to the legislature, for instance, in that state. So, but the court in question would have to agree with Ms. Powell that fraud took place. So she would have to present that compelling evidence and then get the judge to agree, basically.
All right, but don't they already have a constitutional question open in Pennsylvania?
There are two, but only on that. So there's one case that's already at the United States Supreme Court, and that concerns whether or not the Pennsylvania Supreme Court was allowed to rewrite election law and allow ballots that were received in the mail after Election Day to be counted. That's currently in the Supreme Court, and it seems like a great case for the campaign, meaning the Pennsylvania legislature met after the outbreak of the coronavirus to accommodate election needs for its citizens during the pandemic voting. But the Supreme Court has said that the people's right to vote during a pandemic allowed for some extra rights that they just literally wrote into the law. And it's important to add that Pennsylvania's Supreme Court is a partisan court. The justices run for election like they're candidates for any partisan office. And there are 5 Democrats, I think, and 2 Republicans. And this decision and all decisions to date, I think, from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court regarding these election cases have been a 5-2 split. So, but they ruled that they were going to just add more days to the calendar for which votes could be counted. It seems like because of our constitutional guarantee that legislatures set the time and manner for elections, and because that legislature had met in consideration of the pandemic and passed new laws. It'd be one thing if there was a pandemic and a vote in 3 weeks and there was no time for the legislature to meet. I think they'd have a better case that the Supreme Court was just interceding in a way that only they could. But this seems to be to frustrate the will of the people rather than to enact it. And so I think that is a good case. Here's the thing, Lisa. In terms of our presidential election, it seems like it's not going to matter because the total votes there are just a few thousand, apparently.
You think we're at the Hail Mary stage?
I think it's past that, to be frank, Lisa. I think that, I mean, is there a snowball's chance in hell that that she's right? It's 2020. Things, you know, I mean, you don't want to say never, right? But at the same time, where's the beef is the question that we should all be asking. And if Ms. Powell wants to just say, wait for my filing, then I'm happy to wait for her filing. Also, it's a little curious that she's all over the press disclosing these charges without significant evidence that would play in court to back it up.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. I think things will be a lot clearer by next Monday. In the meantime, please hit libertynation.com and sign up for our new member zone, exclusive articles, videos, etc.
Go deeper on the topic discussed in this video. Head on over to one of these links here or go to our Liberty Nation Roku channel. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for Liberty.